Like the fight of Team Anna against corruption in India, is this whole fight, the Occupy Wall Street movement, also a fountainhead really of people's frustrations against greed and big money? On the News Hour tonight, Raymond Vickery, former Assistant Secretary of State of the United States of America, joining us from Washington, D.C. Suhel Seth, well-known columnist, writer and advertising personality from New York tonight. And my first question is to Clarke, who is a well-known activist and writer joining us from London. Craig, what is this all about? Is it against greed? Is it for greater equality? And most importantly, will it sustain itself?
I mean, that's an interesting question. It's a question that's been asked a lot, and it's a question that is reasonably difficult to answer. For lots of different people, it will be about lots of different things. But the fact that it is about a myriad of things, I think, only reflects how much there is that needs to be changed. And, you know, there clearly is a lot that needs to be changed. It's a fledgling movement. It's begun to articulate what it wants and what its demands are. Those demands, those desires might take a little while to articulate, because it is a democratic movement, a truly democratic movement, and true democracy takes time to articulate its wants because it's inclusive.
So you know what you don't like, but you're not sure who is going to take you there and what the alternative is. Suhel.
No,
Suhel.
They don't know what they don't like, because I want to go back to the charter of the Occupy Wall Street movement leadership, and the last sentence in their 4-point charter says, we want corporations to behave better as far as greed and planet Earth is concerned. It is as ambiguous as anything that I've ever heard or read. B, as Craig rightly said, we have democracies in place in some of the countries, at least, where this movement has begun. There are democratic processes by way of which you articulate an issue. And Arnab, while you rightly talked about Anna, there's a slight difference. The Anna Hazare movement was towards a one focused area of corruption. The conclusion and the solution was in the Jan Lokpal bill. What I'm seeing, and I've been to Wall Street to see these occupiers, as it were, what I'm seeing is it's typical young people and some old people who are either unemployed or unwilling to work. It's their angst against a system. But the system hasn't been defined.
Craig wants to...
Every guy
Craig wants to come in. Suhel, Craig's coming in. Craig's coming in. Yes, Craig.
I think it's completely disingenuous to say it's typical of young people. Well, I mean, let's talk about young people in the UK, for example. So, 1 million young people will be unemployed. Of course, they're dissatisfied. And when you talk about democracy, I don't think it's necessarily fair to say that we do have a true democracy in this country. In my country, which is the only country that I can speak for, we have a three-party system where, and you hang on, sorry, can I finish? And so what's being articulated on the streets at the moment is democracy. For example, the Prime Minister that we have currently promised that he would make no changes to the NHS. The people that voted for him on the basis that there would be no changes made to our National Health Service. This week, changes are being made to our National Health Service. So, after what fashion does that represent democracy?
Arnab, this is not a brand of soup that you have different variants in different countries. Craig's argument has to be demolished in 3 ways. And let me demolish it substantively. Number one, he's talking about the NHS. These guys on Wall Street are talking about corporate greed as symbolized by Wall Street. So there's a fallacy. There is no conclusive
But is it not? Is it not all part of the same issue?
Number two.
The idea that there is not enough wealth in the world. Go ahead.
There will never be enough wealth, Craig. There will always be disparities.
No, but disparities is what it's about,
society is
May I please come in?
Incomes.
No, one second. Let me go to Raymond. Yeah. Let me go to Raymond, listening on patiently to this. You see, disparities are what it's all about. Raymond.
I think disparity is what it's all about in the United States. It's 1% versus the 99%. Exactly. And to that extent, the protesters really have a legitimate point. The top 1% in this country, because of tax and fiscal policies, have made out like bandits over the last 2 decades. The average income for people in the 1% has gone up 256%, whereas for people in the middle, it's about a fifth of that. The people at the lower end of the scale, it's about a tenth. So this is a tremendous disparity that hadn't come about by accident. It's become about because of policies pushed by largely the Republican Party and the right wing in order to be able to have lower taxes. The problem for India, it seems to me, in this is that there are a number of people who are talking about anti-globalization, and that often is a code word for anti-outsourcing, anti-foreigner involvement, and I think that that's a big mistake. The whole business about anti-capitalism doesn't wash. If you look at the comparison between East and West Germany, North and South Korea, between what happened in the Soviet Union, what happened in the West, we need market-driven solutions. So what has to happen with the very legitimate concern about the 1% versus the 99% is there has to be some focus and some reasonableness brought to this. But I think it's an encouraging sign that there are people other than the Tea Party in this country who are concerned about the inequality of wealth here in the United States.
Suhel, are you being a bit elitist here? You know, you are from a country, you and I are from a country, Suhel, where you have $70 billionaires. We are very happy to say there are $120,000 millionaires who have emerged in India. But what about the 40% of India that is below the poverty line?
Bang.
Aren't you being elitist?
No, now let me tell you. Well, no, this is the point. We are indulging in tokenism and symbolism. Give me 1 minute without any interruption from anyone. He very rightly, the gentleman from Washington, the former Assistant Secretary of State, says about 1%. The redistribution of wealth is, as he rightly said, a policy issue. So don't occupy Wall Street. Go and occupy Capitol Hill. Occupy White House. Occupy number 10 Downing Street. Don't go to John Paulson's house.
It's all enmeshed.
Number 2.
It's all enmeshed.
No, hear me out.
It's all deeply enmeshed. Politics and corporates are all enmeshed.
You and I have both hopefully done economics of some substance.
Raymond,
you will always have some rich and some poor, and greed which mocks the poor needs to be curbed.
Raymond is coming back.
Greed.
Here's the problem with saying don't occupy Wall Street, but occupy what happens at the Capitol. 97% of the contributions that are going to politicians at the federal level are coming from the 1%. So that's where the campaign contributions are coming from. They're coming from that 1%. And where is that 1% largely headquartered? It's headquartered in Wall Street. So it makes perfect sense. And also, if you look at what's happened in terms of the doing away with the Glass-Steagall Act, which protected banks, that has all happened because of the political influence of money in the system. And so there has to be a way in which you can occupy Wall Street.
Let me now draw into this debate. Let me draw into this debate from Pune. Joining us is one of India's dollar billionaires, a man who makes the list very often in the Forbes list, for the profit margins his company Bajaj Auto makes, the world's largest auto manufacturer. May I ask you, Mr. Bajaj, as a dollar billionaire, what is your position on this anti-greed movement? Are you not as guilty as anyone else of extreme greed of the kind that is being fought everywhere globally? Mr. Bajaj.
Yes, Mr. Goswami, now I need time because I've just come onto the show. I've not heard what my friend Suhel Seth has talked about. He normally talks well, but not all the time. I'm completely innocent of any guilt or any greed, but that anybody will say. But the greed at Wall Street in 2008, September, October, and started a year before that, whether it's Bear Stearns or Lehman, we know about that, Goldman Sachs, Citibank.
Yes.
Two main reasons for what happened and disturbed the whole world was one, greed. Those bankers, they are friends of mine, some of them, but they were greedy. Second, the Bush administration had removed almost all regulations. Maybe Clinton administration had some. Now maybe it's come back. But the Bush administration removed all regulations. It was a free-for-all, Wild West. Those two reasons and the CDSs and the CDOs, those funny instruments which hardly anybody understood, created all this problem. And we suffered. But I've not understood the earlier debate. As far as I'm concerned, the Wall Streeters, the others in the rest of the world in the last couple of days, they have been peaceful, except in Italy. I don't condone violence. If there is any violence, law must take its own course.
There has been no violence.
Peaceful protest is against whom?
In the UK or in the EU?
Is it against countries? Is it against corporates? Or is it against individuals?